So last time we did topic VLANs. We have finished redundant interface VLANs. We finish. Today we'll do NAT, network address translation. Now this topic is also clear with you guys, but still I want to take some theory about this topic, that is NAT. NAT is already, a lot of people or all of you must have done in your networks on routers. NAT can be done on routers, NAT can be done on firewalls also. You must be aware that we have a set of private IP addresses and we have a set of public IP addresses. So in order to conserve the IP addresses, they came out with network address translation. In order to provide security, nobody should know about your private IP addresses. They came out with NAT. If you have an overlapping networks between two locations, then also you can go for NAT. So it is not always that you convert your private into public. You can also convert your private into some other network because you don't want overlapping networks to communicate with each other. It is difficult to make overlapping networks communicate with each other. So NAT is not just converting your private into public, but in industry we always, many people use it to send the traffic from the LAN towards internet. In fact, at home also when we fix the Wi-Fi router, the person has already done some DHCP pool giving private IP addresses and then it NATs with some public IP and send your traffic on internet. So network address translation can be done on both firewall as well as router. Router NAT we have already studied in routing and switching. So today we'll study NAT on firewalls. See, NAT has changed over a period of time because when I used to teach PICs, that time NAT was differently configured on PICs. Then when I started teaching ASA version 7, that time also NAT was different. It carried out for many years till 8.2. Then afterwards 8.4 until date NAT again changed. That means the command, the guidelines, everything changed. Configuration changed. Now you must be aware that we have two types of NAT. One is static NAT and one is dynamic NAT. So what is the big difference between static NAT and dynamic NAT? When you talk about static NAT is always called one-to-one mapping. And dynamic, you have many other options. So static means one-to-one mapping. Suppose you have one server, then you NAT it with one public IP address. So if you have 10 servers, you have 10 IP address. So static NAT is something where you map a single private IP address with a single public address. You fix it out. That is why the term is static. Static routing. You know static routing. You fix it out. This is the network I want to reach. This is the subnet mask, and this is the next hop. In dynamic, it's not like that. In dynamic routing, you always specify your own networks and the
Hello,
routing protocols.
Munawar.
Yeah,
Sorry to disturb. Did you share the screen? You're not able to see.
you can't see the screen. I already.
No.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So I was just telling you about the NAT, static NAT, and dynamic NAT. So I'm talking about static NAT. In static NAT, one-to-one mapping. Every server will have one public IP, that is one private IP address will get mapped with one public IP address fixed. So normally we do static NAT for servers. In dynamic NAT, Dynamic NAT, which is already like we use it for LAN users or LAN, many options. Like you have many to many. Then you have many to few. You have many to one, and you have many to interface. Now many to many is not possible because nobody, no ISP will give you 500 or 1000 public IP address for use. But some say some ISPs can give you. But why you need so many IP addresses to map so many LAN users? So many to many is like people don't go for many to many. People can go for many to few, but still people don't go for many to few also. People can go for many to one and people can go for many to interface. Now what is this many to many or many to few? Just now I told you in static NAT what happens? You map. See, initially the terms are like inside local and inside global. In routing, the terms are inside local and inside global. Inside local means private IP address. Inside global means public address. Then you have outside local and outside global. The term outside local and outside global means the destination where you want to reach is private IP address and is public address. That is why it is outside local and outside global. But just we don't know the private address of the other end. Whatever IP address the source want to reach, is that same address is the outside local and the same address is the outside global. So try to understand, or you can, in ASA we have simple terms, like these are the terms we use it in routers. In ASA we have simple terms. You can use private and public, that's all. Okay, or you can keep those things in mind. What is the meaning of inside local? Inside local is nothing but private. Inside local, that is the private address. So as I said in the beginning, that NAT, network address translation, was designed to conserve the IP address, okay, to fulfill the requirement of the overlapping networks in future. Suppose you go for merger, if you buy some company and that this company is also using the same private address scheme, you can also have these kind of overlapping networks, so you can NAT for the inside or for the outside. Okay, so same way I'm telling you, but the main purpose was converting the private into public. So if I'm telling you many to many and many to few, many to many means like LAN users. So there are many users in the LAN, and you'll be needing many to, okay, you'll be using many to few or many to one or many to interface. Now what is many to few? You don't have, you have 200 users, you have 200 user, and you have few IP address, or you have 200 user and you have only one IP address, or you have 200 users and you have interface IP address. Like in our case, if you see, we have an IP address of 20111, which is a, consider it's a public address. So if this is a public address, you can use that also address for sending the traffic out. So I hope you clear with the many to me. Now in routers, many to many and many to few and many to many definitely works, but I told you nobody go for many to many. People go for many to few or many to one. Now many to few is also out. Nobody goes. Many to one people go. Now many to one, you see NAT fails because you have a lot of people to go on internet and you have only one IP address to serve them. That time NAT fails. So you have an overload command in routing. You have to do that when you configure. So overload activates PAT, but in ASA you don't have this command. It's by default activated. You don't have to give this command overload. It knows that he has to do PAT when many to one is given and many to interface is given. He knows that he has to do what? PAT, port address translation. Now you all must be aware that what is the meaning of NAT. Just now I told you. Now what is the meaning of PAT, port address translation? So every source machine which try to access some machine or some server over internet for HTTP service or HTTPS or whatever, they always carry some unique source port. That is the identification marking done by transport layer. Port numbers are that only, TCP and UDP port numbers. And you must be aware that we have a range of port numbers like 0 to 65,535. Out of that, 0 to 1023 is reserved and 10242 to 65,535 is open. So whenever the machine carries a source port, my firewall makes a chart or makes a table where he write down the source port number and the source IP address and translate it with some public IP address which you have told him with a unique port number. It can be the same. I have noticed that in earlier version we used to have some unique numbers coming in, but now in the latest IS version they don't use any numbers separately. They'll be using the same number because every machine carries a different source port. So whatever port number the machine is carrying, that same port can be used to map or translate and send that machine out. So always remember the source ports are unique, though they carry the same public IP to access the server. So this is the right identification marking with the help of PAT, that is port address translation. Okay. So I hope you guys are clear with the definition part. So we are going to do both static NAT as well as dynamic NAT on this ASA, and we'll see how this static NAT works on ASA and how to configure static NAT. So in our case, if you see the diagram, we have we have two servers. One is R5, one is R6. Last time we changed the IP addressing schema. We'll bring that back. We'll make it so this is 10.1.1.1 2 and then this is 10.1.1.3. Gateway is 1. At present we are not having any VLANs. Configuration is this. So end-to-end connectivity is there. From ASA. Good. Let's check the servers are working or not.
Munir, are you talking? Because
Yeah.
I can't hear anything.
Yeah, I just configuring. So I'm silent.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
So I'm able to ping. I'm able to ping the gateway. Yes. Because of cold and cough, my throat's irritating. So I'm just keeping.
Okay, no, it's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sorry.
Okay. No, it's fine. No, talk as little as you can. It's fine. Because you know.
The cold was too high, and still the infection is there inside the throat.
Okay.
So anyway, if I talk about this now, these both the servers are now able to communicate with each other. Plus, they can go up to the gateway. We don't have any policy for allowing these users from outside to access this server. We'll make those policy later on. Okay. So at least now the connectivity is through, working fine. We removed the VLANs because last lecture was VLAN, so because of that, they were not communicating. So in this diagram, if you see, we have R5 and R6 acting as a server, and we are going to do NAT. So when we talk about NAT, static NAT, just now I told you one-to-one mapping. This is the notes. When we do it on router, it is very simple. You just try to make you understand how the static NAT works on router and how it works on ASA. So when we do static NAT on router, we always say IP NAT inside and then IP NAT outside. What is this IP NAT inside and outside? We always try to specify from where the traffic is going to come and where it is going to go. That means we are specifying the direction. If you don't specify this command on the interface, NAT is not going to work. Because my router should know. Like for example, there is a clear instruction given by school to all the parents that when your son or your daughter is coming to school, see that you make sure that they wear school uniform. If they don't wear school uniform, we are not going to allow them in school. This is a compulsory instruction given when you take admission of your kids in school. So your parents should know when they are going school. It is not always they should wear school uniform. They should know when they are going school. They should get dressed with uniform and go to school. It's not always. Otherwise, if they are at home, nowadays all the kids are at home only because of this pandemic. So if they are not wearing uniform, all the uniforms are going, they are gone bad also because kids are also grown now. And now they don't need uniform because all are attending online lectures like you guys. So what I'm trying to tell you, that translation needs direction. Like you should know. The router or the firewall should know when to do translation. Okay. So when you say inside, you're telling that this is the network which requires the translation. That is the inside network. So if this is E2 means what? Suppose this is demilitarized zone, and then they need translation outside. And simple command was IPNAT inside source. IPNAT inside as a source should get natted statically. This is the private IP address and this is the public address and this is the net mask. But in case of NAT in, again I told you there were changes made. We need to create an object. This is not object group. This is object we are creating. Okay. So in this NAT we are telling one minute. So in this NAT, we are telling object network server 1. Like we have two servers, server 1 and server 2. So we are telling we are having two servers, server 1 and server 2, and their respective IP address. That means we are also specifying that this is a host. That means it's a single host, single server. Okay. The term static is also intact. We used to use static, but this was simple one-line command. Here simple one-line command where we used to give the private and we used to give the public. So almost similar, but only thing is like, you have to go in the object network and say host, that is the inside local, or you can say private IP address. Both the terms means the same. Host is 10.1.1.2 and you want to NAT, but again you have to specify the direction. That is why I gave you the example of the router 1. This interface acts as an inside and this interface acts as an outside. This is serial interface which is facing WAN. So same way, DMZ, suppose the name of this is DMZ. I just gave DMZ. In our case, it is DMZ, demilitarized zone. So I'm telling DMZ is going to act as a inside and outside. Already the name is interface is outside. You don't have to specify the interface. Already the name for this interface is outside. In router, we don't give name. So see here also, don't forget to specify this line. If you forget to specify this line, that means your NAT is not going to work. You are telling your firewall that these are the guys who are there in DMZ. This guy who is in DMZ should get NATed with this public address. Static, the term static. That means this is not the command. This is just a description that I have given. Don't get confused. This is not the syntax. So demilitarized zone or whatever name you have given, it is not mandatory. Whatever name you have given for an interface, you have to use the same name. So if it is the capital DMZ or small DMZ or DMZ1 or DMZ whatever, same. And then you have to give the public address. Got it? Suppose you have more servers, then you go on doing this command like that. But see, in the first case I use 10, in the second case I use 11. That is very important. Okay. So what is the command? Object. When you use the word, when you put a question mark, you get the term network, and then you can give the name. Okay, server 1. Next, you can give a subnet, you can give a range, or you can give a single host. Enter the IP address of the host. And then the keyword is what? NAT. See. So in our case, we have given this guy belongs to E2 interface, DMZ. So you use what? DMZ. And then he is asking which interface you want as a outside direction. The name itself is E0 outside. Then you have, when you put a question mark, you have the term dynamic and static. Just see here. When I gave question mark, I got dynamic and static. So I'm doing what? Static NAT. What is the mapped IP address? Now, mapped means the public address. So whatever address you are having available, your company has taken or you have taken on rent, you have to use that address. So when I go here and say show run object, now when I say show run object, I will see only two sentences. When I say show run, see I created simultaneously, but then this guy make it like that, into multiple statements. See, first statement object network server 1 host, and then the continuation object network server 1 NAT DMZ outside static 20. Okay. So how you are going to how you will know that you have mapped this private IP address with which public IP statically mapped. So you can say show xlet. When you say show xlet, it's telling you one in use and one most used. So NAT from DMZ to outside. That means see he's showing you the direction. NAT from DMZ to outside. Okay. What is the private IP address? 10.11. What is the public address? 20.11. Again, I'll create one more object. Server 2 host 10.1.1.3 NAT. I'm going to say DMZ outside the term static 10.1.1. Sorry, 20.1. This is again a spare IP. I'm going to use it. So now you see 10.1.1.2 is getting NATed with NAT with 20.1.1.10 and 10.1.1.3. Okay. So I hope you understood this command. Now the thing is like you want to allow users to come on this. See earlier when I used to make an access list, either normal access list or object group, you remember I used to always specify the private IP address. But now I have already told my firewall that I have NATed this private IP address with public IP. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll remove the routes. I don't want these routes now because I don't want anyone should know my private IP address. So I'm going to remove the route for this networks. So now when I say show IP route, I don't have any routes for 10 network. Okay, I'll go here and create a policy to allow. I'm going to create a policy to allow these outside users over internet to come on my servers. Nobody will come to know my private IP address because I have to hide it with the help of NAT. I already hid this with the NAT. So they are going to come only with my public address. So my policy is also going to be the same. I'm going to make a policy out in extended permit TCP any means any users from outside, but I'm going to point it to the object server 1 for that traffic. So I'm going to make an access list out underscore in permit TCP anybody to object server 1 equal to 23 equal to 80 equal to echo. If it is echo, then it is ICMP. So you don't need echo equal to. So show run access list. Then I'm going to make another access list for object server 2. So when I say show run access list, I have made 6 statements. 3 statements for server 1 and 3 statements for server 2, allowing telnet traffic, ICMP traffic and WW. I'm going to make an access group out dash in interface outside. Now let's see how this fellow comes in. First, let's try to send a ping packet to 10.1.1.2. It's not working because now we don't have 10.1.1.2 and 10.1.1.3. See, this guy don't know who's 10.1.1.2. He's sitting on, he's trying to access 10.1.1.2 from internet. There is no more 10.1.1.2 and 10.1.1.3. In fact, I have removed the routes also. Okay. But then he will try to ping 20.1.1.10 and 20.1.1.11. So excellent. 20.1.1.10 and 20.1.1.11. Okay. So now troubleshoot. What is the issue? Show run. You see the security level is what? 0. So when I say show access list, show CONN detail. One minute. Huh? Ping 20.1.1.10. Repeat 1000.
I think both are on the same security level, right?
Yeah. I know. Just I saw that 0 is there. Okay. Just looking if the connection is coming. Show access list. So when I did DMZ, it took 0. It should make 50. Okay. So when I say show accelerate, let me check one more thing. One. Show IP route. So I just change the security level. Ping 172.16.10.2. Can I reach there outside? Yes. 10.10 and 10.11.
We can do one more troubleshooting that if the security level, if the security level would same, so we should configure the same interface. That command, I don't know the exact command.
Same
Is
security we
same
did
security
last
level.
time. Yeah, yeah.
We did that last time.
Yeah, yeah.
That
That
in this
command is
condition,
needed.
yeah,
No, I was
in
just
this
checking.
case,
No, I was just checking. See, initially what happened, I'll tell you. When I'm talking about connection, remember, 1 minute. I'll show you what I was checking. I'll show you what exactly I was checking. See,
yeah,
this,
I saw connection was not created. It was not taken on that access list.
yeah, actually, when you send a packet here,
Hmm.
it is reached here. And
Hmm.
here we have a policy.
Right.
That policy should allow echo. Okay. That policy definitely should trigger and it should allow echo. Like now you see, it's allowing echo. Can you see? Allowing echo. Allowing echo. But what about echo reply? Okay. So in this case, what happened? It should trigger, send it here. It should trigger here.
Hmm.
Because there is a policy, it should send here. But then echo reply will not work. Why?
Right.
Because the security level is 0. No?
It's 0. Right.
Nothing can go outside if there is no policy, or
Right.
nothing can go from 0. So I was just checking whether it is not, why it's not triggering. It should trigger. Okay. I don't know. Anyway, E2. Once again, I do security level 0. Okay. Now we'll try to use telnet. So I say 20.1.1.10.
Command is not. Command was not proper.
I gave no.
No, telnet was not written there.
It's okay. You can write like that also.
Okay.
So this time you see show CONN detail. Show accelerate. Show CONN detail. It's not triggering. Actually, it should trigger. Anyway, I'll see later on. Security level 50. So run Cisco enable Cisco. Now you see when I go here and say show CY identity. See, I don't have to see accelerate table because it is already showing me that anybody try to hit 201110 is going to send it to 1011. So anybody try to hit 201111 is going to send it to 10113. Now, if I send my traffic out also from this server, see, ASA is little bit poor in debug, but still will do debug. NAT so inside to outside is going. If you take GI of ASN, I will show you that time. In GI, you can see more better. Okay. Debug NAT. If you want to activate logging on ASA, you need to say logging enable, logging trap 7, logging console 7, logging enable. On routers, you have logging on. Here you have enable. Then you have 7. You must be aware of the 7. 7 means 7 levels. E, A, C, E, W, N, I, and D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 0 to 7 is 8. Actually. E means emergency messages, alerts, critical messages, errors, warnings, notificational messages, informational like fan is not working, processor is hitting, debugging. So these top messages are very important. This is all notificational information. So 0 to 7 is 8. If you really want to find out emergency messages, you say 0. You want to find out alerts and critical, you say 3. But when you say 4, it will monitor all. If you say 7, it will monitor all the 0 to 7 messages. Okay, you don't have to remember. When you say logging trap and put a question mark, you can see. But they are not arranged in order. You see 0 is emergency. Then alerts, critical, then errors, warnings, immediate action needed, critical condition, debugging messages, system is unusable, wide emergency. I just said 7. Okay. So I try to do once again telnet. It's showing. He says ASA build an outbound TCP connection 44 for outside 172.16.10.2 for telnet session. This is the outside local and outside global address. Outside local and outside global. And this is your inside local and inside global. See, outside local and outside global. Outside global is always in bracket now in ASA just to differentiate. There is no term outside local and outside global, but you should know what is outside local and outside global. Outside local means the destination private IP address and the destination public address. What is inside local? Your private address and your public address. So you see 10.1.1.2 is trying to access 172.16.10.2 and he is doing telnet. So what is his source port? 35107. Firewall is translating him to 20.1.1.10. So the other fellow R7 is looking this fellow as what? 20.1.1.10. See, you can see this fellow as what? 20.1.1.2. Translated public IP address. ASA is doing proper translation. If this fellow try to do telnet, इसको 20.1.1.11. If this fellow is trying to do telnet to 172.16, I by mistake did it 20. What I did. Okay. So I'm just doing what? Telnet to 172.16.10.2. Let me connect power. 10.1.1.3. Okay. Now see, this is when I did 20.1.1.11. He immediately noticed that this is some kind of attack, land attack. Land attack is something where you try to spoof your source IP and try to enter into the network. Okay. Actually, within DMZ, you should not use the public IP address. So he is not recognizing, he is recognizing this as an attack. So it is showing some land attack. Anyway, this is the successful communication that 10.113 is doing with 172.16.10.2 via telnet and is getting translated with 20.1.1.11. So when I go here and say who, I can see now two people logged in. One is 20.1.1. Okay. One minute. Huh? See 20.1.1.10 and 20.1.1.11. 1 minute. Hello. Hello. Yeah. So, any doubt regarding static NAT? Show Xlet. You can see. Now we'll talk about dynamic netting. Static NAT is very simple. Okay. So in dynamic netting, I told you we have users in a network. It can be single network, it can be multiple network. Suppose you have VLAN 10 network, VLAN 20 network. Okay, so you can define multiple IP address for multiple network. You can, if you have one ISP, you can have one pool of one pool of public IP for one LAN network. You have multiple ISP, you can use multiple public pool also. Okay, but let's make it more simple now. Okay, we'll take a case where you have only one LAN, that is 10.0 network, which is inside, and we have one set of pool, like we'll be using only one IP address now. Okay, and we'll see how the net take place. If you want, you can use a pool also for addresses, or you can take only one IP address and you can also NAT. Okay, so suppose you are taking many, I told you there is multiple things you can do. You have many to many, you have many to few, you have many to one also. So in our case, suppose we have many to one. Okay, we have only one IP address available. 20.1.1.10 and 11 is already gone. So suppose we have 20.1.1.15. First you'll do undebug all so that they won't harass us. Now we'll make object network LAN users. Okay, so now instead of single usage subnet, specify 192.168.10.0, 255.255.255.0. Then you say what? NAT. Now in our case, it's now inside and then outside. So now see, the term has been changed. Earlier the inside was DMZ. That means the direction of the servers is inside. DMZ. DMZ is inside actually, which has to get NATed with some public IP when they go outside. Now we have a term called inside for the LAN users. Okay. So I said inside and outside. The name of the interface is inside. That means now we are doing dynamic netting, and always remember dynamic netting is done for LAN users. So we have a term called inside. Already the name of the interface is inside and outside. The term is what? Dynamic. And then you can specify the mapped IP. So I told you we are going to make only a single IP use. Okay. So now when I go here and say show accelerate, no logging. First I'll just no logging enable. We'll remove this. And I say show accelerate. When I say show accelerate, you see nothing is there. Now I try to go out from this LAN user by doing telnet to 172.16.10.2. Okay, so the connection is still problem because last time we did VLANs. So I just remove show VLAN. Default interface E0 by 2 and E0 by 3. Show VLAN. Go to R3. Ping 192.168.10.1. Okay, you go here. Interface E0 by 0. IP address 192.168.10.3. No shut. IP default gateway 192.168.10.1. Ping 192.168.10.1. 192.168.10.2, 10.3. Pinging. Show accelerate. Now you try to do telnet to 172.16, 10.2. Show CONN details. So 192.168.10.0 or 10.2 is trying to access. Okay. So when I say show accelerate, you can see this is the connection table for us. So it shows you the private IP address and the other end IP address. But in the NAT table, you see it's a dynamic NAT. So it's telling you that he did PAT, port address translation, because he knows that you have given for 254 users, you have just given one IP. So he knows that he has to do NAT, PAT. For 254 users, you have given only one IP. That is 20.11.15. So he knows that he has to do what? PAT. So he activated PAT. You can see who came from inside 192.168.10.2. What is his source port? 27990. To outside 20.1.1.15. So translation took for this guy. So when it was sent outside, it was translated to 20.11.15, and you see the port is same. No problem. The other guy is going to carry the new port number. So you can use the same port. The other guy comes, So, other guy is 10.3, 24589. His port number and this port number is different, though they are carrying the same public IP. Okay. So, who is doing PAT? My firewall is doing PAT automatically. What kind of PAT is doing? TCP PAT, because they are doing telnet connection. So he is doing translation with only single IP address for both the connections. One 192.168.10.4, 255.255.255.0, do telnet, 172.16.10.2. One more guy comes. See now, three guys, 3, 4, 5. That connection is active. I just change it. I'm just changing the IP address of the host, just to show you that I'm sending multiple user traffic. So 3, 4, 5, 6, they are all coming and getting translated with only a single IP address. But you see, all are getting successfully connected. Why? Because firewall is doing what? Port address translation. So when this fellow tried to do who, you will come to know that got it. 20.1.1.15. Suppose you don't have an IP address. So instead of mentioning the IP address, you mention the interface. What I'll do, I remove this. I remove this statement. LAN subnet 192.168.10.0, 255.255.255.0, NAT, inside and outside, dynamic. So now when I say interface, see earlier I said the IP address, that is 20.1.1.15, that is the public IP address, I got it. But when I say interfaces, is going to take which interface? The exit interface, that is the outside interface. He is not going to take inside interface, he is going to take the exit interface. What is the exit interface? Outside. And what is the IP address of the outside interface? 20.1.1.1. So let's see. Once again, we will try to send the traffic of telnet. What is the IP address of the exit interface? दरवाजा बंद करो. What is the IP address? 20.1.1.1. That is the exit interface IP address. So we did an example where we took one IP address. We did an example where we took interface because we don't have any public address. We're going to take only interface. Suppose we have many addresses. Then we can make a pool. Or you have few IP addresses. Dynamic NAT for network with pool of few IP. That time you have to create a pool. 20.1.1.12, 20.1.1.20. So start IP address is 12, or already we have used 10 and 11. So 12 to 20 is available with us. So whenever we are making a pool of IP addresses, you have to name that pool some name. So I just named it object pool, and then I called it object pool for this guy, this network and this network. I told you can have many this thing also. Clear with many to many, or sorry, many to few, many to one, and many to interface. Dynamic NAT is always used for LAN users. Many to many.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we add in one object, one network object? Can we add more than one subject? Like in our current scenario, we have taken.
Better we make multiple objects of multiple network. Like this is the scenario where you have two LAN. One is HR and one is IT.
Okay.
If you have
Right.
two different subnets, 10 network and 20 network, and you have only one ISP in front of you, like in our case, you have only one ISP. In front of R1, we have an ISP, only one. There's no redundancy. So that time, 10 traffic is also going to go from that same public IP, and 20 traffic is also going to go from that same public IP. Same public IP, they'll get NATed. But there are two different LAN. One is HR LAN and one is IT, that is VLAN 10 and VLAN 20. Got it? Their subnets are also different. That time, you can use the same funda. Like you can have an object pool of many to few, or you can use many to one, or you can use many to interface. Ultimately, the exit point is only one for both.
Okay. Okay.
Now you are telling me, no, sir, we have two ISPs. Instead of one, we have two ISPs. Like you have two ISP. One is connected with say R1, and one is connected say with R10, suppose. Now this is some other ISP, this is some other ISP. Okay. But they are all connected with the same ASA. Got it? Both are connected with the same ASA.
Okay.
Okay. Now you might be having sub interface to do this. Okay. This pool might be different. Like already this is 20.1.1.1. Sorry, 20.1.1.1. And there is some public IP address here. This might be 30.1.1.1. Okay. So this is 20 and this is 30 sub interface. So this is dot 1, this is dot 2, this is dot 1, and this is dot 2. That means two set of public addresses are there now, and two different ISPs are there. So you created sub interface VLAN 20 and VLAN 30. If you create sub interface, you have to map it with VLAN. Na? and you have two different LAN. One is HR, might be 10, and one is IT, might be 11. So VLAN 10 and VLAN 11 is having two different subnets. One is having a subnet of 10.0, one is having a subnet of 20.0. So both are private and both want to go different ISPs initially. You want to load, you can say separate the traffic. You want HR VLAN should get this internet access and IT. So you can create two objects, one for HR, one for IT. And whenever you are calling the IP address, that time you have to pay attention. If you are using interface command, that time, see, this is now outside for both. Na? In this scenario, it will not be outside for both. Na? One
Right.
will be out one will be out two, or ISP1 and ISP2, whatever. So if we say ISP1 interface, that means he will carry 20.1.1.1 IP address and go to internet, and this will carry 30.1.1.1. You understood now what I'm trying to say? If you want, I can build and show you these two different pools. Okay. So this is very important, where you are sending your traffic and how you are sending your traffic and what IP address you want to get it NAT. Very important. Okay. So just go through this sheet I'm going to send today. I'll build that infrastructure also and show you if you want. Okay. Got it, Tushar? Anyone, any question?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now what is port redirection? Now this is like, in the beginning I said you have 10 servers, you will be needing 10 IP address to get it mapped. But then if you have 20 servers, that means you have 20, because static means what? One-to-one mapping, no? So they came out with port redirection. Now what is port redirection? You don't have to map a single IP address with a single server. You can manage with one IP address also for 10 servers. Now this is something new. Don't get confused with dynamic. It's not like dynamic, huh? Because in dynamic what happens? First come, first serve. Like if user 1 comes, we get mapped with some public IP address available, or he'll get mapped with the same IP address and go out. But here I am talking about an IP address. Here I am talking about an IP address where you have only one IP address for 10 servers. But remember one thing, 10 servers, that doesn't mean all these 10 servers are giving the same service. If, like in our example, if you see, one server is a telnet server, another server is a HTTP server, another server is an FTP server, another server is an SMTP server. Now, if all the servers are giving different services altogether, then their port numbers are also differing, no? So that is called port redirection. Port redirection means, like for example, both these servers are two different servers. Like this is a telnet server and this is the HTTP server. Their IP addresses are also different, private IP address, but their services are also different. But we don't have IP now to NAT them. Two different IP we don't have. We have only one IP. Let it be. We'll map them with only single IP. So we are going to map these two server with only one IP. See, initially when I started my lecture, I said one-to-one mapping. One-to-one mapping means I gave two different IP address for two different servers. Just now also you can see it's already active. When I say show accelerate, you can see two different IP addresses are there, 21.110 and 21.111. So two server means two IP, and if there are 10 server means 10 IPs, no? But here I am changing my statement. I am telling if I am doing port redirection, I don't need 10 IP address or two different IP address for two different server. I can map them with only single IP and I can still make them work. How? See, if this fellow is looking for a server called 20.1.1.10, so he's going to come and ask ASA, boss, I want to go to 20.1.1.10 because you published me that this is the server, your server, and I want to get access to this. Now my firewall will get confused if both the server will carry the same IP, no? Because he don't know this R7 is asking which server. But no, R7 is very specific about this server. He want to do telnet. So yes, my firewall knows that if someone comes and tells me that I want to go on 21.1.10 and I want to do telnet on that, so my ASA is making a table 10.1.1.2, though it is getting mapped with 20.1.1.10, what is the service is having? 23. And 10.1.1.3, though it is also getting mapped with 20.1.1.10, his service is not telnet, his service is something else. Is FTP server or HTTP server. So if somebody is coming and asking me, I want to go on 21.1.10 for telnet, he is diverting him to this server. If somebody coming and asking him, I want to do HTTP for this particular server, he is diverting him to 10.1.1.3. So you see, services differ, IP address is same for all the servers. So we are separating our server from services. We are differentiating the server with service and we are saving IP address. And that is called what? Port redirection. Okay. Let's see how it works. So we'll remove the translation where we have one-to-one mapping with these guys. So I just remove this object network. This statement actually goes separately. So I just remove this. Okay. So I need to remove the access list also because I am using this in an access list out dash in. For taking verify the clear access list. There is one command, remove clear access list out underscore in. Okay, let's see. show access list, show run object, control A no, show run, okay. Now I'm going to make object network server 1 NAT DMZ outside static. First I have to say 10.1.1.2 NAT outside static. You also have to mention the service. TCP say 23. Now when I give service and TCP, first I have to give the real means the original port number of the protocol, and then I have to give the translated port number of the. So what I did, I took same number the original is 23 for telnet and the map is also 23. Okay, now I'll go for the second server and say what host 10.1.1.3 NAT DMZ outside static 20.1.1.10 same IP service TCP. Original is also 80 and map is also 80. So when I say show accelerate, you can see I gave same IP address to both the servers. The server is 10.1.1.2, 10.1.1.3. The original port number is also 23 and 80, and the map port number is also 20. See, now you can change this port number also. In the next example, I will show you. You can also change this port number. You can keep anything else. But see, why you are doing this? Not for the not for the internet users. You are doing this access for your own branch users. If you hide the port number, the internet users won't come to know. If you hide the port number, your branch users will come to know. So you can have a security, like you want only your branch users to access. You can even hide the port numbers. You can make some open port number. But at present, we are considering that we'll be having users coming from internet for telnet and HTTP. So we are keeping the same port numbers, but you see we have the same IP address getting mapped for both the servers. Okay. So now what I do? I go here and create an access list out underscore in permit TCP any to come on object. Object name is what? Server 1 equal to, that's all. You don't have to specify the EQ. I think we don't have to specify. Server 2 access group. So now when I try to do telnet to 20.10, you see now show CONN detail. Connection is successful. Show accelerate. Already translation is static, so you are already seeing that successfully telnet is done. Okay. Now you try to do 80. One minute. So I did what? HTTP access. So at least I get some response. So when I say show accelerate and when I say show connection detail, you can see my connection is successful on 10.113. See, I use the same IP address I use for telnet. Got it? But see how my ASA understood that this connection has to be sent to 10.113. If I try to do telnet from here 20.1.10, you go here and see how this fellow now send this traffic to 10.112. See how he recognized that this connection has to be sent to 10.112 when somebody do telnet, and how he knows that this traffic has to be sent to 10.113 when somebody do 80. See, both of them did the same thing. They try to access 20.1.1.10. Okay, show access list. You can see there is a hit count for both these statements, for 10.1.12 and 10.1.13. I gave object server 1, but see he is showing us that you are actually giving access to 10.1.12 and 10.1.13. So in this scenario, what we saw in port redirection, exactly what you're doing, you're trying to save the IP address by not mapping one-to-one on servers. You can do that by separating services according to the TCP. Okay. Now suppose you want to map, or you want to even change the port numbers, but that you can do it when you have only your branch users. You can do that way also. So what I'll do, I'll remove this. I hope this is clear. The first example is clear with you guys. Any doubt? Okay. So now I'll do what? Remove this access list. Remove the object. Which object I'm going to remove? Object server 1. And I'm going to remove object server 2. Now once again I say object network server 1 host 10.1.2 NAT DMZ outside static 20.1.10 service TCP. This time I am going to use the original port number, which is 23, but in the translation I am not going to use original port number. I am going to use 2323 or I use 3333 suppose. This I knows and my branch users knows. Original port number is 80. So when I go here and say show accelerate, you can see original port number is 23. The map port number is 3333. Original port number is 80. The map port number is 8888. Now the attacker won't come to know these port numbers because they are open port numbers. Attacker knows about 23 and 80. Attacker will not come to know what is the original IP, original port number. Attacker can see 21110, but he won't come to know what exactly is this port numbers. Okay. So now once again I do what? I create an access list, permit, out dash in, permit TCP any object server 1 and server 2. Okay. Access group out dash in interface outside. Once again I do what? Same thing. I try to do telnet, but if I do it with 80, it's not going to accept because he is expecting 8888. One minute. So what I'll do? See now 8888. So when I say show CON in detail, I can see it, there is a success. When I say show access list, I can see there is a hit count. Why? Because I use what? 8888. Now again R2 is using this. See, telnet session is open. Show access list. Hit count is there. Show CON in detail. 10112 telnet server, 10113 both are working. Got it? Already it is there in this notes. This is router configuration for static NAT and dynamic NAT. This is ASA configuration. I hope you guys understood NAT. Okay. Any questions? Anyone? Any questions? Okay. So what I'll do, I'll share with you guys this configuration. Okay. Today I'll end here only. If anything left in NAT, I'll show you. Okay. In GUI also, I will show you. Once I get the GUI, I'll show you how it works in GUI. Okay. Thank you. Good night, all of you. Take care.